for us, definitely being in the forefront of legitimizing this art form, it's an honor on my end. And I mean, to me, I'm not done. If you look at graffiti in just overall, like, look at how much it's expanded, and it's a global art form now with the invention of the internet. And back in the days, it was very limited on what was out there, what was being shown, because we didn't have magazines and we didn't have websites. And so what ended up happening was, somebody painted in LA or San Francisco, and someone from here was visiting there. They would photograph it, and they would send a copy back home.
Right.
So it's kind of like, not only did it involve snail mail, but also, when you got it here, you would pass it around to your friends, and everybody, like, ooh, they're getting busy. So, it was like, kind of like, for us, it started out as like a New York thing only. Once we started realizing, like, wow, it was getting busy over there, and in LA and Chicago, there was this whole movement going on nationally that, you start kind of like realizing that, this is bigger than what you actually thought it was.
Yeah. How old were you when you really started, like, doing the trains?
I don't know, about 16, 14, 15, something like that.
And could you have ever imagined it would surpass
what you thought? Nobody. I mean, if you would have asked me back then, even just, if you would have told me that you can design graffiti on a computer, print it out, and take it to a wall and paint that, I'd look at you like you're crazy, just because it wasn't part of the norm. But nowadays, it's definitely evolved, and it's something that's going to continue evolving. Like, who would have known, the first cavemen would turn into, like, huge societies. If you look at, like, the time span of, like, throughout the ages, it's kind of the same thing for graffiti. Like, it was very crude, very raw, and then you look at how you start to realize how progressive it's gotten. And and through that is one of the reasons is definitely because of everyone that's participated in it and joined in this movement has definitely brought something to the table to shake it up a little. It's gotten to the point where it's very competitive, but it's also very energetic, and it's kind of like its own animal, in a sense, where it lives and it breathes amongst the world now. Because actually when we started, it was more of a guy thing, you know what I mean, and it was also like looked at as a poor man's sport, kind of like kids from the ghettos, from the hoods in Brooklyn, the hoods in the Bronx, so what ended up happening, it was always looked at as, like, in Spanish they would say the títeres, like, the hoodlums, but it was always looked at this underground art form as as this illegal kind of art form. But I mean, that was back then, and look at it now. It's crossed the economic barrier where you have rich kids. It's crossed borders where it's like a global phenomenon now. You have it in Australia, in China, in Japan. We were in Poland. There were graph writers in Poland. Getting busy. Everyone gets busy. It's not like it's very crude painting. It's, because of the internet, and that you can get on there and you can study style, and it's everyone that jumps in nowadays has this head start that we didn't have when we started. So, because of all these changes, it's definitely taken on like life. And this art form, like I said, it's an animal that, it's tamed in a sense, but it's still living and breathing amongst the masses, and it's definitely crossed over, like I said, economic barrier, even gender. There's a lot of women, who can definitely hold their own, and you know, are definitely looked at, you know, as true hot artists. So, you know.
Nice. And any advice for young, up-and-coming, you know,
Oh, yeah.
artists?
I mean, my advice to anyone that wants to, you know, get involved in this art form is, you know, look at the history, but also look at the future. You know, I paint along guys who've been doing it longer than me, and I also paint along guys who have been doing it less years than me, and I got something to learn from each of them. It's something that if you really want to learn, you're thirsty for it. And like anything else you get involved, whether it's music, whether it's photography, whatever you get involved in, you have to have that thirst and that hunger to do it. Because if you don't have that, then you're just wasting time.